Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. This is our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam, and today we're going on our 57th session, meeting in Kurukshetra. And today is a very astonishing topic. We're going to hear something about how the Gopis were teaching Uddhava the principles of friendship. So before we go any further, we'd like to just say a few prayers. Goragraganya gana gota goloduharam Goranga gudatama gopyada kopa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Narayanam namaskrityam naram shaiva narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Vedi Ramayanesh Chaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikoribe Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Padaye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. I'd like to welcome all of our friends. Nice to see Naima Sharanya Prabhu here, Ananta Gauranga Prabhu. So today we're reading from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, which, as we've been speaking about, according to many Vaisnavas, this is the most important chapter in the entire Bhagavatam, this Bhramara-gita, because this Bhramara-gita has become Gaura Leela. So we spent, our last 4 sessions or something, speaking about text number 5 in this chapter. And today I'm hoping we can cover 3 texts, 6, 7, and 8. Text number 6, the Gopis are speaking to Uddhava, and they describe Anyes artha krita maitri yavat artha vidambanam pumbi strisu krita yadvat Sumanas eva satpadai. The friendship shown toward others, those who are not family members, is motivated by personal interest, and thus it is a pretense that lasts only until one's purpose is fulfilled. Such friendship is just like the interest men take in women or bees in flowers. So I'm going to read just a little bit from a few different purports. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Saartha Darshani commentary, explains that the Gopis are saying here that friendship with persons other than one's parents is motivated. And without those motives, the relationships don't exist. Thus, they should be condemned. And Vishwanath says that the gopis are indicating three types of condemned friendships, or three condemned aspects of friendship. Those who make friendship, those who are the object of friendship, and those who assist in bringing about friendship. He says they're all to be condemned because of a verse in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 21, where Prithu Maharaj says, Kartu Shastra Nugyatas Tuyam Yat Preta Tat Phalam. That there's three people who share equally in something: the person who does it, the person who assists it, and the person who orders it to be done. So in a similar way here, the gopis, they're saying that if you engage in this mundane friendship, and here they're teaching Uddhava, this is our topic today, they're teaching Uddhava what is real friendship. And they're saying that Anyes Artha Krita Maitri. Maitri means friendship. This friendship toward other people, it's Artha Krita. Krita means that it's done or manifested for some artha, for some purpose. And that purpose, it's yavad, it's only there for so long as artha vidambanam. As long as that motivation is fulfilled, he says it's vidambana priti, or it's pretentious love, it's pretentious affection. And it's condemned. Three types of friendship are condemned. Three types of mundane friendship. Those who make the friendship, those are persons who are the object and those of the friendship, and those persons who assist in bringing about friendship. They're all to be condemned because of selfish motivation. Now Uddhava, he's thinking that I'm very close with Krishna, I'm his Maitri, I'm his good friend, and he's sending me, but Uddhava only knows the level of friendship which is understood in Mathura. And so the gopis now, they're bringing him to a higher level, and they're telling him that where there's friendship where there's motive, and there's no friendship where there's no motivation. And the friendship of men and women is the same. Jiva Goswami in his Laghu Vaishnava Toshan, he comments that on this verse that the flower is like a person who has a good mind. Samanusu has no fault, but out of greed the bee comes. So that's compared to like the gopis. The gopis they have a good mind, they have a good motivation, they have no fault to themselves. And the bee shows this affection for the flower in the same way, Pumbi Strishu Krita, in the same way that men show some affection for women. But the bee is there for some personal motivation. In Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnava Toshani, he explains that although, as we heard in the previous text in number 5, it's difficult even for Atmaramas to give up family members or persons who are completely satisfied. We don't see anyone attractive to Krishna in Braj since he has no friends here. The gopis are speaking in a very angry kind of way. And two things, as we're mentioning here, are being done. One is that the gopis, it's not a conscious thing. It's not that they sat amongst themselves and discussed, well, how should we respond to this fellow Uddhava? What should we say to him? No, this is just Udguna. It's something which is just erupting from their hearts. They're not thinking about it, but immediately, because the gopis are operating completely on the platform of love, when they see Uddhava coming and speaking about affection or trying to show some affection as a messenger, then they respond on that level. And their response is, no, you don't know about love. And this is one of the reasons why Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan, so that he could go to the school of Braj Prem. So then we go on to text number 7. In text number 7 and number 8, the gopis give, in each verse, they give 4 different examples of mundane love. Altogether, they give 8 examples. Text 7 describes, Nisvam tvajanti ganika akopam nripatim prajaha adita vidya acharyam vidvijo datta dakshinam. The Gopis say, they give 4 different examples of mundane love in this first verse, that prostitutes abandon someone who doesn't have money, the subjects abandon a king who's not competent, students give up their teacher once they finish their education, and priests, or ridviks, they give up the man who's remunerated them, the datta, as soon as he gives the dakshina, or the remuneration, the money for doing the sacrifice. So in this, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that in this verse, the Gopis are giving a series of examples for logical illumination. Deepika Nyaya means the logic of illumination. And so that they're giving some logic showing how different examples of these mundane, motivated relationships. Now, Jiva Goswami says something very important in his Laghu Vaishnava Toshani. He says, if a relationship between 2 persons is based prominently on dharma, it is lasting. Whereas, if it is predominated by local custom, it is temporary. We'll come back to that. Let's go on to text number 8, where the Gopis give another 4 examples of mundane friendship. Kagavita phalam briksham bhuktva chati hayogriham dagdam mrigastataranyam jara bhuktva ritam striham. The 5th example they give is the kaga. Kaga means the birds. That the birds, they leave a tree when the fruits are gone. They show so much affection to the tree when there's fruits, but when the fruits are gone, then the birds leave. The 6th example is the guests. The guests, they give the titi. After you're giving something to eat in the house, then you leave that house. And the 7th example is animals. They love the forest, but as soon as the forest burns down, all the trees burn down, then the animals also abandon the forest. And the 8th example is a lover abandons the woman he's enjoyed, even though that woman remains attached to him. So let's go on a little bit with the commentaries. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Saharta Darshini, we're just touching on a few points of each of these different commentaries, and some of them we're not touching on at all. Gopis, they say that birds give up a tree once the fruits are gone. A paramour gives up a woman, though she's eager for enjoyment, but as long as she's young, he doesn't give her up. So we see this so much in mundane relationships, that the love is motivated. It's hoitaki priti. And we learn from the first canto of the Bhagavatam a very basic foundational principle, savai pungsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje, that devotion, bhakti to adhoksaja Krishna, is defined as ahoitaki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. For that love to fully satisfy the self, for it to be fully satisfying, it has to have these 2 qualities, ahoitaki and apratiyata. There's no motivation, and it never finishes. But because the so-called love and friendship in this world is hoitaki priti, it has some motivation, then it's pratiyata. It has an end to it. And the young man, he loves a woman when she's young. But when she gets older and she's 40 or 50 years old, then he wants to give her up and look for another younger woman. So the Gopis are saying, what kind of love is this? When that motivation disappears, then the love and the friendship disappears. In the verse, Jiva Goswami describes that the word striya in this verse is used in a singular way, striyam, and the words paramour, jara, is in the plural form. And by this, he says that the Gopis, they're implying that it's okay to reject a woman who's involved with a number of different men out of lust. But we are many, and we're devoted to one. Is this the opposite? But still, he has no love for us. So two things are going on. One thing, they're teaching Uddhava, whether it's conscious or unconscious. They're teaching Uddhava about what is real love. And the second thing is, they're testing Krishna's love. They're telling Uddhava this is not really love. They're speaking out of man, out of their sulky love for Krishna. And they're telling Uddhava that our love is not motivated by lust, since we've had love for Krishna since our childhood, before these distinctions came between men and women, before we had some lusty desires. It's natural for a teenage girl, if she has some motivation for a boy, you may say, oh, she's motivated out of lust. But if it's a 5 or 6-year-old girl who loves a boy, where is the question of lust? And the Gopis said to Uddhava, our love's not impelled by lust, because we've had love for Krishna since our childhood. But by neglecting so many of us, in a plural way, Krishna shows unprecedented cruelty in his heart. He's very, very bad. So Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnava Toshini, he comments that these 8 examples that the Gopis give are related to material goals. Now let's examine these very briefly. The Gopis in text number 7, they say, Nisvam Tvajanti Ganika. This is the first example they give. Ganika means a prostitute, or someone who's seeing many, many different ganas. Nisvam Tvajanti Ganika. The prostitutes, they give up someone who's nisvam, someone who doesn't have any assets, who doesn't have any money. So this is a motivation in love. And we see sometimes a woman loves a man, but as soon as that man runs out of money, then she goes on to someone else. This is hoitiki priti. The second example given by the Gopis is akalpam nirpatim prajaha. The praja means the citizens, and when there's a king who's akalpam, who is not, he's not kalpa, he's not competent, he's not expert in his service, that nirpati means that the king, that king, he's given up by the citizens. And we see in the same way with politicians, with leaders, if someone can't actually take care of their subjects in a proper way, if they don't have the faith in the subjects, then they give them up. So it's so very, very important that the king or the leaders of society have the faith of the citizens. And if they don't have that faith, then they can't function as a leader. That's the nature of guru. Guru is that person that you have faith in. And if you don't have faith in that person, how is it that they're guru? They may be someone who's giving you mantra datta, but as we quote here in Orissa, they say, Konafanka guru. He's just spitting in your ear. And he's that kind of guru, because you don't have faith in him. So that faith is so important. The third example given by the Gopis in text 7 of mundane affection is adita vidya acharyam. Acharya means the teacher. So those persons who are adita vidya, they've completed their education. They've gotten their vidya, their knowledge. The students, once they finish their education, then they leave their teacher. So this is the nature of mundane love, whereas we see with transcendental love, someone will never give up their guru. They'll never give up their paramarthik guru. But our Lokik guru, someone we're studying grammar from, or mathematics or something like that, we give that person up. Or someone who's just mantra datta, who's just giving us a mantra, they'll give that person up. This is mundane love. The fourth example is an interesting example the Gopis give. Ritvijo datta dakshinam. That the Ridvik priests, the word used here is Ridvik, that those priests who are doing some sacrifice, they give up the datta, or the person who is organizing the function, as soon as they get their dakshina. As soon as they get their remuneration, they get their money, they get what they want, then they give it up. So that Ridvik relationship is not a relationship which is based really on love. And this is an example given by the Gopis here in the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, the Bhramara-gita. So those are the 4 examples given in text number 47. Then in 48, the Gopis give 4 more examples. The 5th example is Kaga Vita Phalam Briksham Bhuktva. That the Kaga, the birds, Vita Phalam Briksha, the phala briksha, with the fruits on the tree, when the birds, bhuktva means to eat, when they've eaten those fruits, then they give it up. Here in front of our house here in Jagannath Puri, we have just near, we're on the bank of a lake, and there's a field in front of our house, an empty lot, and behind our house, and there's 3 date trees just in front of our house, and the dates are all giving fruits. And so you see a number of birds have made their nests just nearby. And we see they come every day and they pick these dates. And nicely they come and they drop them right in front of our house. And all the birds gather there together and they're sharing those dates with each other. But as soon as those dates are gone, then those birds are going to go somewhere else. So that's hoitaki priti. It's some motivation. The 6th example given in text number 8 by the Gopis is atitayo griham. Atiti again means a guest. And griham, when the guest goes to someone's house and they're welcomed there, the guest only stays as long as they've eaten. It's not that after you've eaten, I think I'll stay here for a few weeks now. I like your place very much. You have a good shower. You have this and that. No, the guest leaves after that. So that's also some hoitaki priti. There's some motivation for that. The 7th example the Gopis give in text number 8 is Dagdam Mrigas Tataranyam. That aranya means the forest. That the animals who are in the forest, the mriga, as soon as that forest is dagdam, it's burned down, then the animals who love that forest very much, they've dedicated their life to that forest, but as soon as the trees are all burned down, then the animals leave that forest. So their love is hoitaki priti. The 8th example the Gopis give in text number 8 is Jara Bhuktva Ratam Striyam. Jara means the paramours. That a man, he enjoys so many different paramours, but Bhuktva, after having enjoyed them, then he gives them up. Bhuktva Striyam. He abandons that woman after. So this is the nature of mundane lust. And we should understand what is the difference between love and lust. It's a difficult thing even for devotees to understand. And what to speak of us, even it's difficult for Uddhava to understand properly. And therefore the Gopis, they're taking him to school. And they're saying, yes, you think you know about friendship. And why are they speaking so much about the word maitri? Why aren't they using the word priti, love, which is generally a word which is more often used between a boy and a girl? They're using the word priti, using the word maitri, friendship. There's also friendship between a boy and a girl, but as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, that friendship is condemned. The Gopis say it's condemned in 3 ways. Sometimes people, they want to be friends with a boy or a girl, between boy and girls. But Srila Prabhupada criticizes that friendship. And unless, as Jiva Goswami says, unless that friendship is based on some kind of dharma, there's a relationship between the teacher and the student. And even then, in that case, generally in our line, as we were discussing, where was this we were discussing the other day? Oh, with in the case of Ganga Mata Goswamini, who took initiation from Haridas Pandit, he gave her initiation, but then he told her, now you go associate with Lakshmi Priya, who's your auntie. And she, and according to the devotees in the Ganga Mata Mutt here in Jagannath Puri, that Lakshmi Priya was the guru of Sachi Devi, who later became known as Ganga Mata Goswamini, because her guru is a renunciate. So how is he going to associate with her? They have a relationship, and that relationship is good because it's based on dharma. Generally, we find that relationships between men and women are dharmic if they're based on 3 principles. If there's a father and daughter, or there's a husband and wife, or there's a son and a mother. those three types of relationships are dharmic if they have that motivation. But if that motivation is not there, and there's some kind of so-called friendship or something, our acharyas are describing here that that's a kind of cheating. And there's some subtle lust there. And this lust is defined in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Kaviraj Goswami in Adi Lila chapter 4, which speaks about, this chapter speaks about the nature of what is really love and what is lust. And so he speaks about these two things. Apnindriya priti vansha tare bolikam Krishnindriya priti icha dhare premanam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Atmendriya priti vansha. When your motivation of this priti is atma indriya, for the pleasure of your senses, this is your desire, then he says, tari bolikam, that's lust. Whereas Krishnendriya priti, icha, when you have a desire to bring pleasure to the senses of Krishna, dhare premanam, he says that is prema, that's real love. Rupa Goswami defines what that real love is in his Ujjwal Nilamani in the 14th chapter. He says, Sarvata dvangsa rahitam satyapi dvangsa karane yad bhava bandhanam yuno saprema parikirtita. Our Guru Maharaj used to quote this verse sometimes. Yad bhava bandhanam yuno saprema parikirtita. When there's every reason for this relationship to be broken, but it's not broken, that's really love. So other relationships, there's some motivation. And there's we should understand the difference between these different types of love. We speak sometimes about this, that there's three apparent types of love, or two apparent types of love, and one real type of love. The stula deha priti, which means you have some affection for the stula deha, for the body of that person. Wow, this guy is just a complete hunk and I'm really attracted. This girl is so very, very beautiful. But it's just attraction for the skin, which is 1/16 of an inch thick. And that relationship is hoitaki priti. It has some motivation, and therefore it's pratiyata. It'll have an end to it. Better than the stula deha priti is the sukshma deha priti, or the attitude with someone, they love the sukshma deha, or the subtle body. I really like this girl because she's a real intellectual and she likes chess and I also like chess. But then maybe later on she decides, I don't like chess anymore, now I like punk rock and I'm into mud wrestling and I'm not into chess anymore. So then the relationship breaks, because also that sukshma deha is not permanent. The thing that you're offering your love to is not a permanent thing. Only jiva priti, only love and affection for the soul is actually permanent. And therefore Jagadananda Pandit, in his Prema Vivarta, he speaks about what is really love, what is lust. And he uses the word again and again, piriti. Piriti means love. Piriti, piriti, piriti bole, piriti bujilake. Jejana piriti bujite pare, braja gopi hoya se. He says, piriti, piriti, piriti bole. Everybody's speaking about love, 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 but who really understands love? Piriti bujilake. Jejana piriti bujita pari braja gopi hoyase. It's the gopis of Vrindavan who really understand love. So Uddhava is coming. Yes, I'm the Maitri. I'm the friend of Krishna. I'm the messenger. But the gopis are saying, what kind of messenger are you? What kind of love is it that you have? What kind of love does your master have? He's supposed to love us, but it's obviously hoitaki priti. The gopis are speaking out of their loving sulkiness. and criticizing Krishna's love, and in this way teaching Uddhava and teaching us all about what is real love. Sometimes we comment that in the Hare Krishna movement we have a 16-word mantra, 16-syllable mantra with 3 different words, Hare Krishna and Ram. And this is the Maha Mantra. This is the great mantra for deliverance. And in the material world, there's also a Maha Mantra. But this Maha Mantra is only 3 words. And this Maha Mantra in the material world, which gives one everything, so we think, is these 3 words, I love you. And if someone says, I love you, then as soon as he finishes saying that, and you go home, immediately you call your girlfriend, do you know what he said to me? He said, I love you. Now, and you consider my life is now perfect because he said these 3 words, I love you. This is the Maha Mantra, which everyone wants to hear. Everyone wants to pay attention to this mantra in the material world. But as we sometimes point out, there are 3 faults in this mantra. What are those faults? The first fault is you say, I love you, but you don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. So how can I love you if I don't know who I am? The second fault in this mantra is, I don't know what love is. I just think that love means lust. And the third fault in this mantra is, I don't know who you are. I just see you as a bag of stool and urine and wrapped up in some skin with a little bit of hair stuck on top and some teeth and things. I don't know who you are. So this whole idea of I love you is complete nonsense. It has no meaning. So this is the nature of mundane friendship. In the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 16, mundane friendship is condemned. Bandhu gyatyari madhyasta mitrodasina vidvisa sarva eva hi sarvesham bhavanti kramaso mita. So in this material world, which is just like a river, which is carrying everybody away, carrying all living entities away, in this river of the material world, everybody, they develop some bandhu, they have some friendship, they have some family members, they have addis, enemies, they have people who are madhyasta, who are neutral, there's maitri, there's well-wishers, there's persons who are dasina, indifferent, there's vidvisa, envious persons. These are all natural relationships. Prabhupada in his purport, he comments, he says, it is our practical experience in this material world that the same person who's one's friend today becomes one's enemy tomorrow. Our relationships as friends or enemies, family men or outsiders, are actually the results of our different dealings. As stated in Bhagavad-gita, prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasa. Factually, everything is happening because of our association with the modes of material nature. Right? So we're under different modes of nature. Prabhupada says, therefore, one who is my friend today in association with the mode of goodness may be my enemy tomorrow in association with the modes of passion and ignorance. As the modes of material nature work in illusion, we accept others as friends, enemies, sons, or fathers in terms of the reactions of different dealings under different conditions. So really, who is your friend in this material world? Who is really your relative in this material world? Again, the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 23, text 48, describes Tam durjayam shatrum masayam vegam aruntudam tanna vijipchikechit kurvancha sadvigraham artyamartya mitranudasina ripun vimudha. The persons who are vimudha, who are completely bewildered, because, why are they bewildered? Because tam durjayam shatra masaya vegam. They can't durjay, they can't conquer the shatra, this great enemy of the mind, who has these ashaya vega. Vega means urges, has these intolerable urges, which are room to them, tormenting their heart. And because they can't conquer over that, then they identify certain people. Oh, this is my friend. This is someone indifferent to me. This is my enemy. And in this way, people are completely bewildered. And we should understand this as a very, very important principle. What's going on in this 47th chapter of the 10th canto? Uddhava, who's a great devotee, he's such a great devotee, he's been meditating on Krishna his whole life. He looks just like Krishna. And he knows about love. Amongst all the devotees in Mathura, Uddhava is perhaps the best of all the devotees. But he's coming to Braj and he's becoming completely humbled. Oh, I thought I knew about love. Actually, I don't know anything. So in a similar way, sometimes as devotees, we think that we know about love and friendship. We think we know about affection and community. But if our motivations are wrong, if there's some hoitaki priti, if there's some motivation in our friendship and our love, then that relationship becomes problematic and it breaks. Because it's hoitaki, it's pratiyata. Wherever there's motivation, the relationship is temporary. Even amongst devotees. Even if we have a relationship, we love someone. I've seen this, I'll say something very harsh, excuse me. But I've seen sometimes devotees become very, very popular within a temple when they're a brahmachari, and especially they're doing big collection. They're making so much money for the temple. But the same brahmachari, as soon as he gets married and he's no longer making money for the temple, then sometimes we just reject that person. We don't care for them anymore. We don't applaud them anymore after Mangal Artik and say Krishnadas Prabhu Ki Jai for collecting so much or distributing so many books or whatever, because our friendship, our affection for them was motivated. And then how does Krishnadas feel? He feels very hurt and very sad. I thought everybody loved me. I thought this was a very wonderful community, but they don't actually love me. Now I see their love was actually motivated. So this is the nature of mundane relationships. They have some motivation, and therefore they're based on some sectarianism. They have some motivation, and therefore they break. And that kind of relationship is not nourishing to the devotees. It's not nourishing for the society. So we need to learn what is a real relationship. In the Chaitanya Siksamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes something about the dangers of sectarianism. We just printed this in issue 151 of our Krishna Katamrita Bindu, a little plug for our email magazine there. He says, to be controlled by superstition causes many problems. You're going to be controlled by something. And if you're being controlled by superstition, superstition meaning something external, something just from the mind or something. Oh, I'm being controlled because I'm part of this institution. I have this rule or whatever. But you're not being controlled by love. You're not being controlled deeply by philosophy. It's just some external thing. To be controlled in that way causes many problems. Because when you're controlled in that way, Bhaktivinoda says, that from that thing comes prejudice. Because what's controlling you is not actually proper dharma. It's not actually proper philosophy. It's not actually proper love or devotion. But you're just doing something because you're supposed to. You're following Varnashram Dharma, but not in a deep philosophical way, what to speak of a devotional way, but you're following Varnashram Dharma because you're supposed to. And you have this relationship. But that relationship, from that will come prejudice. And we see this many times. I've seen many, many grihastha couples who are nice devotees, nice girl in the temple doing book distribution and preaching, nice brahmachari boy doing the same. But when they get married, all of a sudden, they start talking amongst themselves, and it's us and them. And they start talking between the two of them. Did you hear such and such devotees doing this? And I heard that this girl, now she's cheating on her husband. Oh, this is very bad. And this person's very bad. And you start having this prejudice. And your group is good and the other group is not good. And Bhaktivinoda says from this kind of prejudice comes disrespect for truth. In other words, you can't give respect for someone but in a philosophical way because they're a servant of Krishna. You can't respect everyone. You can't be a manina manadena. And Bhaktivinoda goes on to say that wearing the signs of a Vaishnava is one of the methods of cultivating devotion, which involve the body, but to think that those signs are the distinguishing characteristics of a Vaishnava is a superstition arising from Sampradaya prejudice. That I only like people that have this kind of Urdhva Pundra, these two lines going up, in our particular line. In our line, we wear this Gopi Chandan tilak. Other Vaishnavas, they wear a Radhakund tilak. That's not the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. That's not the general Gaudiya line that we have. But some Vaishnavas wear that, but we hate them because they have a different type of tilak. We don't appreciate them because they're Ramanuja Vaishnavas. They have some other kind of tilak. That's a kind of prejudice, and it causes problems. And Bhaktivinoda goes on to say that when one is controlled by such false beliefs, they're false beliefs, again, because they're not based on philosophy, they're not based on real dharma, they're not based on love, real love. If you're controlled by such false beliefs, Bhaktivinoda says, a person may not respect a real Vaishnava who's not wearing those marks. You may have someone who's a housewife, and maybe they didn't have time to put on their tilak, but they're actually a great devotee. But you think, she's just a housewife. Or someone's working a job and they have some hair, and you think, how can I give respect to him? He's not shaven up. And he says, therefore, you're going to have this problem, that you're not going to be able to recognize, you're not going to give respect to someone, because you only give respect due to external things. And there's many, what's our time right now? I'll tell one quick story about this. A true story that we heard from some Vaishnavas in Vrindavan. There was one sadhu who was a very, very expert at giving Bhagavat Pat, or speaking on the Bhagavatam. He's a great scholar. And many different people were coming and hearing his kathas every day. And there was one person who was coming who, when he would come in and sit down, everybody else would get up and move away from him. Because he lived on the street. He wasn't taking bath. He wasn't washing his hair. His hair had dreadlocks. He had dirt caked on his body. And he smelled bad. And sometimes people would see him. He'd eat off the ground. Sometimes dogs were eating at the same time he was eating. And so people didn't appreciate that very much because they're high-class Vaishnavas. Now one day, that sadhu who was giving the class, he happened to go to the Gopishwara Mahadev temple for darshan, and as he was coming out, he saw that person who was coming to his class every day going in. And he asked him this question. He'd never gotten a chance to speak to him before, but as he was coming out, that person was coming in, and the person gave some respect to him. They had a little exchange. So he said, man, you don't mind, can I ask you a question? Why do you behave like this? And he said, do you have any, where do you come from anyway? And he said, I come from such and such village, which is a really high-class village. And he said, well, what kind of family do you come from? I come from a Sarasvat Brahmin line. That's a very high-class Brahmin line. He said, well, do you have any education? Yes, I have a master's degree in engineering. My God. He said, man, what are you doing? You're living on the street. You have a master's degree in education. You're eating off the ground with dogs. What are you doing? And that man, that disgusting-looking person who's living on the street, spoke something which normally maybe he wouldn't speak, but somehow by Krishna's desire, he spoke out his heart. And he said, well, if I don't behave like this, then I can't see Krishna. And he spoke with such simplicity and sincerity that sadhu was taken aback. And he looked at him and he said, you see Krishna? He said, yes, I see Krishna in a very humble way. And that sadhu who understood Shastra, he said, how do you see him? Is it like a spurti? Do you just see him for one moment? Or how do you see him? And he said, no, I see him like I see you. And we speak, we have some relationship. But if I don't behave like this, then I become proud. And I can't see Krishna. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's point. That we may see someone who looks like, we used to call them, in Los Angeles, we call them trolls. Troll is someone who lives under the bridge and doesn't take baths or anything. You may see someone who looks very, very disgusting, but you don't know That person may be Vamsidas Babaji, he may be Gorkishore Das Babaji, a very, very great exalted person. But because maybe they're not wearing tilak, because they're so absorbed and they're chanting, they didn't even think to take bath that morning, you think they're not a proper devotee. So Bhaktivinoda goes on to say that controlled by such false beliefs, and a person may not respect a real Vaishnava who's not wearing those marks. If a devotee can't find good association within his own organization, within his own goshti, his own sangha, then he won't venture to find good association elsewhere if he has such a prejudice. So Bhaktivinoda is indicating you have your own organization, you have your own sangha. That's good, and naturally you should be faithful to that sangha. But if you can't find good association there, you need good association. But if you have this prejudice, then you're not going to be able to find it elsewhere. Sometimes we see devotees even in ISKCON. They're initiated by such and such guru, and they think only the sangha of my Gurudev is good. I am initiated by this guru, but this other devotee, he's initiated by a different guru in ISKCON. He's not good. And how can you find good association in that way? And Bhaktivinoda says then you fall into a dangerous situation. And he says that those persons who are bound up to the Varnashram system by prejudice, they're following Varnashram Dharma, but they're not doing it out of deep philosophy. They're not doing it out of a deep sense of devotion. They're just doing it out of prejudice. They fail to develop a taste for a higher level of bhakti. And he says then sometimes even hatred, which degrades a person even more, may also appear. So these are principles of friendship. Mundane friendship is based on hopes and failures. We have some hope that it's going to be very, very good. It's going to be like this and that. But it's always doomed to failure. It's always doomed to be disappointing. So we should understand what is real love. What real love means amongst the devotees. Real love, Swajati Asya Snigdha Sadhu Sangha Satovare. Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we want to associate with devotees who have the same kind of mood. Again, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says, Sayutan eva sangshrayat. Eva means only. We should take shelter only in a group which is like-minded. If we take shelter with somebody, we say, oh, you're an ISKCON devotee, and therefore I'll be your friend. You're going to become disappointed. You have to find persons who are like-minded. And we have to cultivate groups which are like-minded, small groups. And sayutan eva sangshrayat. We take shelter only in that intimate kind of group. Paraspara anukatanam pavanam bhagavad yasamito ratir mitas tushta nivita atmana. The 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, 11.330. This verse I quote quite often, describes how we associate with devotees. We associate with devotees by hearing Krishna Katha, by keeping Krishna in the center. The Satvata Tantra describes Hari Lila Sutochara, Pareshi Satatam Tvaya, Karya Pritastadahara, Yata Bhakti Nanashiti, that you should learn to love devotees by hearing Krishna Katha. Not just that you love them because the guy's cool, because I really like it. He's a cool guy. He's got earrings. He's got some cool tattoos. He's got some dreadlocks. I like his bodily hair that he's got. This or that. I like the way he leads the kirtan or something. The way he plays the music or the jokes that he tells in class. If you have attachment to those things, that's going to be pratiyata. And your community will fall apart, and you'll fall apart, because we need to have some support. And therefore the Satvata Tantra says, if you have love for devotees based on Krishna Katha, then yetta bhakti nanashiti, your bhakti will be protected. It won't be destroyed. But if you have some other type of affection, then it's going to be problematic. Yastan Vesti Saman Vesti, Yastananu Samamanu. Krishna, he told Duryodhan in Hastinapur about the Pandavas. He said, you don't like the Pandavas, but you should understand that someone Yastan Dvesti, Samam Dvesti. If you hate Vesti, you hate the Pandavas, it means you hate me. And Yastananu Samamanu. If you love them, if you follow them, it means you follow me, you love me. Therefore, our love is based on Krishna. And therefore, there are different types of love. There's sopadika priti. There's love which has a motivation. My Guru Maharaj spoke about this. The sopadika priti we find in Mathura and Dwarka. Even the Mahishis, they have some conjugal love for Krishna. But that conjugal love is sopadika, it's sa-upadika. It has an upadi. They have love for Krishna because he's their husband. And therefore it's hoitaki priti. It has a motivation. But the love of the gopis of Braj is nirupadika priti. It has no upadi because the gopis, they're parakiya. Whereas the Mahishis, they're swakiya. They're married, and the gopis, they're not married. The love of the Mahishis, or the queens in Dwarka, is patitva. I love this person because he's my pati. And there's some motivation for that. But the love of the gopis is ramatva. They just love Krishna. It's ahoitaki priti. So we should understand these different types of love, and we should keep Krishna in the center of things. Jiva Goswami in Gopal Champu, he describes the relationship of the Brijbasis and how the Brijbasis, they loved Yashoda, but their love for Yashoda was ahoitaki priti. It was love which had no motivation. And when they saw that Yashoda didn't have a child yet, then what did they do? All the ladies of Braj began doing austerities, praying, oh, my dear Lord, please, for this austerity, I'm fasting on Ekadasi, may Yashoda have a child. That's ahoitaki priti. Whereas in the material world, people become very envious if one lady gives birth to a child before the other lady. There's some competition. But in Braj, there's no such competition. Because that love is simply based on desire to serve Krishna. In the Lalita Madhav, there's some description given, in the Vidagda Madhav, whereas Krishna and Madhu Mangal once dressed up like Brahmins, and they went to perform some Surya Puja on behalf of some gopis whose names were Radharani, and one elderly gopi whose name was Jatila. She engaged these two Brahmins. Oh, you should be the priest for my daughter-in-law Radharani. And so they did this priestly function. And then Bhatta, who's very vachita, very talkative, he asked them, so you should give us some dakshina. I want some ladus. I want some this and that. And Krishna became a little angry. And Krishna said, Gokula Basina Maitri Labha Eva Me Dakshina. No, the friendship of the residents of Gokul is sufficient payment from me. That's all that I want. That's all that Krishna wants, is that friendship. Because that love in Braj is nirupadika priti. There's no upadis, there's no designations. It's ahoitaki priti. And so the gopis, they're teaching Uddhava about this. So this is the school, the first school of Braj Prem that we find in the Bhagavatam. So we'll go ahead and stop there, and I want to invite the devotees, if anybody has any reflections or comments, this is a time for it. And I want to thank different devotees, Ujjvala Rasiga for taking part, and Brinda Sundari from Denver, Colorado, Subal Sham Prabhu, nice to see you. And Ujjvala Rasiga, she comments that faith in the mantra given by Guru is very important. That's something she's walking with. Anapayani Radha is also there. Nice to see you. Naimisharanya Prabhu. Ujjvala Rasiga goes on saying that knowing that we're practicing motivated love or recognition, we wonder why the temples continue to do that. We feel sorry for those who are being praised now but neglected later. It's a very sad thing, isn't it? And sometimes we get angry intuitively because we say, this is not right. This is very, very bad. It's a terrible thing. It's such a horrible thing. Everybody loves children. But what is your love for the children when those children become abused and there's no proper judicial thing that happens, and there's no proper punishment for the persons who've abused them? We become very, very angry with that. Intuitively, we're all looking for a kind of relationship which is ahoitaki. We have to look for that ourselves. My humble suggestion is if we just look for that in an institution, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur is teaching us, that Oh, because they belong to the same institution, therefore I'm going to get some satisfaction in this relationship. Because of that, you're going to be condemned to frustration. And your association with that institution, which is the Seva Sangha of Srila Prabhupada, it may be cut short. So to preserve your Seva for Srila Prabhupada, to preserve your Sangha with that service, we have to cultivate these relationships in a very intimate way. Brinda Sundari comments, she says, it's quite a painful, saddening world we're in with so much superficial love. However, what's more painful for me is aspiring for authentic love and falling short due to impurities and conditionings. She says it's relishable to hear divine persons dissing false love and glorifying pure love for Krishna, and sometimes it also feels so far from reach. So this is a very, very good point. It's so very important. We talk to people about love, as Jagadanda Pandit was saying, piditi, 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 bodhi. Everybody's speaking about love. The Hare Krishna devotees, they also speak about love. But then sometimes we come to the temple and we see that it's not really love. There's some motivation there. We love you when you're giving money. We love you when you're being respectful to me. The husband loves the wife when she's washing the dishes and she's cooking and doing different things. But if she wants to become a little independent, then that love is cut short. This is the nature of love, which is sopadika priti. It has upadis, or designations. Those designations are always, sooner or later, invariably going to become violent. There's either in a subtle or gross way, there's going to be some violence, because that upadi is there in connection with my body. I love you because you're a member of our temple. You're a member of our group. I love you because you're my wife, because you're my husband. I love you because you're my son or my daughter. And I love you when you behave according to the conception I have for that title. Being my wife, for some people, being the wife for someone means that you never ever quarrel with me. You just do whatever I tell you. And that's the upadi, the designation, the conception I have for being a wife. But when you step outside of that and you behave in another way, which is outside my designation, I become very, very angry. And then I hate you. And even there's violence. And therefore we find in this material world that the majority of violence in this world, of hate crimes, I shouldn't say hate crimes, but of people getting hurt, of even murders, happens in the family, happens between people who are supposed to be loving each other, because of these upadis, because of these designations. I love you when you're going to give me what I want, and when you stop giving me what I want, then that love stops. That's not dharmic. Dharmic love is something higher, and it's not completely satisfying, but that dharmic love, Jiva Goswami in his Laghu Vaishnava Toshani says, is better, because I understand that this is my husband, this is my wife, I've taken a vow, and I'm doing this thing because I want to develop bhakti. And therefore, I'm going to try to develop some relationship with this person, and therefore, the Sattva Tantra says, Hari Lila Sutot Chara Pareshi Sattva Tantra. We should love them based on Krishna Katha. Don't just love them because they buy a big house for you. Don't just love her because she's cooking for you. Don't just love that devotee because they come to Mangal Artik every day and then they're submissive to you as their authority. That's motivated love. And it may be based on some kind of dharma, but if that dharma is not based on a higher goal of developing love for Krishna, then it's going to be hoitaki, and it's going to be pratiyata, and it's not going to be yayatma supersedity. It's not going to satisfy the self. It's not going to satisfy the community. Naima Sharanya Prabhu made some comment. Thank you for this class. How do we find our like-minded devotees in a community? Well, first of all, when we say like-minded, as Prabhupada once said, that I gave you a brain. We don't even know how to think. So we have to learn how to think from Sadhu Guru. And what does Sadhu Guru tell us? That you should hear and chant. And we should love people then who like to hear and chant. We should develop some ruchi. Jiva Goswami, in Bhakti Sandarbha, when he speaks about the progression of bhakti, he says one of the very first stages is we have faith, ado shraddha, and what faith in what? Tata sadhu. in a sadhu. And in the beginning, we have some kind of vanilla faith. And we just hear Bhagavatam class from many, many different devotees, Jiva says. But after some time, there's one particular person we really like their mood. And we start hearing more from that person, not just to collect information or because they're entertaining or something, but we want to hear from them because we want to collect the mood of that person. So therefore it said, Swajata Yashya Snigdha Sadhu Sangha Satovare. We want to associate with devotees who are Swajatiya, literally meaning coming from the same caste, but Jiva Goswami explains that Swajatiya means who have the similar mood. We want to find persons who like to hear the same kind of katha that we like to hear. Maybe you really, really like to hear about Ramayana, and hearing about Krishna makes you feel a little uncomfortable because he's married to all these 16,000 ladies at the same time, and that doesn't sound very good. And there's a lot of people in India like that. They can appreciate Ramachandra because he's Maryada Purushottam. He's the perfect example of Veda Maryada. But I can't relate to Krishna. So then you should associate with people who like to hear about Lord Ram. And maybe you like to hear about Ram from the perspective of Hanuman. Or maybe you like to hear about him from the perspective of Lakshman. So then you'll associate with devotees who like to hear in a similar way. So how can we find that? We have to keep hearing. And we keep hearing with devotees. And as we're hearing with devotees, we see, oh, this person, he has the same taste I do. He has a smile. That smile came on his face at this time. He's listening to the same kind of recordings that I'm listening to. And then we can go to that person, hey, I'd really like to do some more private hearing and chanting with you. And this is the lesson we get from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, that although Mahaprabhu is associating with thousands of devotees in the Jagannath Mandir, at the same time every day he's going in a private way in the Gambhira, and he's hearing and chanting with Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda in a very intimate Sangha. So I hope that helps, Naima Sharanya Prabhu. I miss you, Prabhuji. We miss your Sangha. I think about you quite often in your voice. Dayanidhi Prabhu has commented, I don't know why I don't listen to Madhavananda Prabhu more. Hare Krishna. As whenever I do, I'm amazed at his nice presentation filled with tons of cool facts and deep realization. Well, thank you, Prabhu, for your kind words. Maybe Krishna is trying to save you, so he makes some other arrangement for you. I don't know. Yashoda Dulal Prabhu. Nice to see you, Prabhuji. He says, thank you. As you mentioned in another class, there's a vast number of devotees in Prabhupada's ISKCON movement. We have to find the right association and inspiration among the right devotees. There are plenty of inspirational devotees around that we can associate with. This is such an important principle. Yashoda Dulal Prabhu is one of the leading devotees in one of the most wonderful sanghas I've seen in ISKCON, which is the Bhakti Center. But even in that Bhakti Center, which is a very sweet, intimate kind of preaching program, for those of you who are not familiar with it, on the ground floor you can walk in, there's a vegan restaurant, which is the most popular vegan restaurant I've heard in the whole district of New York. And you go there and maybe you see the sign, Hare Krishna or something, and you see these Hare Krishna people, they have yoga classes. Well, I'd like to practice some yoga. So you go upstairs and you sign up for the yoga classes. And the devotees who are teaching the yoga classes, they have neck beads, I think tilak, and they're Hare Krishna people, but they're not in your face about it. They're just relaxed. And they're teaching you yoga, and they're good yoga teachers. And after some time, they make friends with you. And then after making friends with me, they say, hey, we have this program every Thursday night upstairs. Thursday night kirtan, and you really got to come. It's going to blow your mind. And it blows their mind. They come, and there's some of the most wonderful kirtaniyas. And that's a wonderful thing. But it's not the end of the Bhakti Sangam. The Bhakti Sangam has to continue, and we have to have small groups, which will nourish intimate relationships. Because even though we've made friends with those people, that friendship, there may be some subtle motivation there. We're trying to get them to become a devotee. And that's a relationship which is mixed. It's based on some love for them, but also we have some hope for them. And we have love for them. You have more love for them when they start coming to the programs. But if they stop coming to the programs, we're disappointed. And maybe our love is a little bit lessened. Okay, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Nice to see you. Manu Prabhu has commented, thank you for these great meditations, which are very helpful in trying to become an authentic devotee. And Havi Prabhu is very nice to see you. Havi Prabhu is the most wonderful association, I can say that. You associate with Havi, his kirtan is such a very, very deep, heartfelt thing. Yashoda Dulal Prabhu goes on. Also, there are lots of sincere leaders around in ISKCON, like Brinda Sundari Devi here. And I feel it's vital for us to support such sincere souls and their seva to the institution and the devotees in whatever way we can. Well, that's an interesting comment. Of course, it depends on your motivation. Again, someone can say that well, because Brinda Sundari, she's the wife of the temple president in Denver, and I'm an ISKCON devotee here, and I'm also a manager, therefore I should support her. And you may do that in a mechanical kind of way, and you may even try to be nice, and we're friends, we have some friendship because we're both leaders. But we should go deeper than that. And as I think Yashoda Dulal Prabhu is intimating, when we see how Brinda Sundari and her good husband, they're cultivating devotees in such a loving, natural way. This I like very much. This I relate to. And I want to support that. Because there's so many people to support in ISKCON, and we want to support any devotee in Prabhupada's mission. But there's some people we support in kind of a general way. And there's other ones that we'll support in a deeper way because they're closer to our heart. Brinda Sundari comments that's really interestingly worded for Swajatiya, collecting the mood. Thank you for this katha today. I feel very spiritually grounded by. Thank you. And Naima Sharanya Prabhu says, thank you for the beautiful answer, collect the mood. And Rohini Kishore Prabhu says, thank you for the deep meditations that guide our consciousness in the proper way to serve. We want to try to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission, but let's not do it in a shallow way. Let's do it in a very, very deep way. If our relationships with devotees, if our motivation for our relationships with devotees is shallow, then how our assistance for Prabhupada's mission, our support for that mission is also going to be shallow, and it'll also become pratiyata. It'll end at some time. So we need to develop very, very deep relationships for that. So thank you very much. If anybody else has any further comments or reflections, we can hear from them. Krishna Kun has something here. Give her the mic. Go ahead, Krishna Kun.
Thank you so much. I really like that the friendship of the Vijbasis is enough payment for Krishna. Gokula Vasina Maitri, something from Vidagda Madhava. And I was struck by it, especially because just recently in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, I woke up to some of the statements of Sanatana Goswami where he explains the difference between Krishna's Leelas and a child's play. And he specifically says that the child is playing because of his own desires. But Krishna's Leelas are to give pleasure to his devotees. So they are not selfish. So this unmotivated love is actually coming from Krishna, and that's why we are instinctively, as you said, we are intuitively looking for unmotivated love in ourselves and from others. Because it's there in Krishna, it's the most beautiful, most pure thing in the world. So
I was also thinking about, not to be political or anything, because we should appreciate everybody, please, and especially anybody who chants Hare Krishna. But sometimes we don't find full satisfaction in all the different sanghas of devotees. And there's some associations, some sanghas we find where people, their motivation mainly is just that they have a link, or they have some kind of official initiation, maybe through a priest, through what we call a ridvik. And as the Gopis indicate here in this 8th verse, in the 46th chapter, that's a hoitaki, that's hoitaki, that's a motivation. And that type of love is going to it's not going to last, it's going to go away. So we want to have deeper relationships. Let's see, the Gopis, they say, what is it? Here it is. Ridvijo datta dakshinam. It's the last part of the 7th verse. That someone who's done something for them, when that person gets something, then the relationship is finished. They don't really have a deep relationship with that person. And it's interesting to me in Vidagda Madhav, when Krishna does a priestly ceremony, disguised as a Brahmin, Krishna disguises himself as a Brahmin It's to come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. When he disguises himself as a Brahmin with Madhu Mangal and he does this puja for the elderly ladies of Braj, for Jatila and others, then Madhu Mangal asks for some remuneration, some dakshina. And Krishna says, no, the only dakshina I want is the love of the Brij Basis. As Krishna Kund is commenting. And Naimisharanya Prabhu comments, Hare Krishna to my dear mother Krishna Kund. Missing you both, and so nice to hear you both. Hari Bol. So we're just waiting for this pandemic time to stop. Naimisharanya Prabhu, so you can come and visit us, we hope here. And maybe we'll even go to America, I don't know. That's not very big on our list these days. We're feeling intoxicated just being able to stay in one place. So I want to thank everybody very much for taking part. We've gone way over time. So again, we'll have another session on next Tuesday, and we'll continue with text number 9 of this Bhramara-gita, this wonderful chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gopremanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpadarubhischa, Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha Patitana.